Hey, learner. Ready for another deep dive? This one takes us back to 1880s San Francisco to uncover a story that's, well, it's more than just history.
It really is.
We're talking about Mary Tape and her family, their fight for educational equality and civil rights. I mean, it resonates even today.
Absolutely. And we've got some incredible sources to draw on. Court documents, newspaper articles, even personal letters.
It's like piecing together a puzzle, right?
Wow.
To understand the Tape's world and the challenges they face.
And what's fascinating is how this case, it might not be as famous as, say, Brown v. Board of Education,
Right.
but it reveals so much about the complexities of assimilation, exclusion, and the constant struggle for civil rights in America.
It's like a microcosm, right, of these larger forces at play. And it reminds us that these issues, they're not just confined to history books. They continue to shape our society today. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's set the stage. Imagine 19th century San Francisco. The gold rush is over, but the city is buzzing with energy, a melting pot of cultures and aspirations.
It's a time of immense growth and change, but also one marked by deep social and racial tensions.
Yeah, and those tensions, they were especially palpable when it came to the Chinese community. Anti-Chinese sentiment was rampant, fueled by economic anxieties and outright racism.
And it wasn't just talk. It manifested in discriminatory laws and policies, most notably the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882.
The first U.S. law to ban immigration based solely on nationality.
Exactly. It's a chilling reminder of how prejudice can be codified and institutionalized.
And into this turbulent world, we meet Mary and Joseph Tape. This couple, they were determined to build a life for themselves and their children. Mamie, Frank, Emily, and Gertrude.
And they were up against incredible odds.
Mary, she arrived from China all alone when she was just 11 years old. Can you imagine?
Remarkable resilience.
And Joseph, he worked his way up from being a laborer to becoming an interpreter. They were defying stereotypes left and right.
They were. And their story really captures this tension that many immigrants face, striving for acceptance, embracing assimilation, yet constantly hitting barriers rooted not in their actions, but in their ancestry.
It's like this constant question, right? What does it really mean to belong?
Exactly. And who gets to decide?
And one article, it even quotes Mary as saying her children were raised American.
Which speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's about more than just where they were born or lived.
Right. It's about values, language, a way of life. But here's where their story takes a turn that's both heartbreaking and inspiring. It's 1884. The Tapes try to enroll their 8-year-old daughter, Mamie, in the local white school near their home.
A simple act, you'd think.
Right, just a parent wanting the best for their child. But it ignited a firestorm.
It exposed the deep hypocrisy at the heart of California law at the time. Public education was supposed to be guaranteed for all children, yet segregation in schools was legally permissible.
Talk about a contradiction.
A recipe for conflict.
And the reasons the school board gave for rejecting Mamie, they were ludicrous. They claimed Chinese students couldn't assimilate and posed a threat. But then in the same breath, they feared that educating them would help them assimilate and gain a foothold in society.
It's a classic catch-22, designed to maintain the status quo, to keep certain communities marginalized.
So here's little Mamie, a U.S. citizen, being turned away from a school simply because of her Chinese ancestry. The injustice is just, well, it's palpable.
It is. And you can only imagine the frustration and anger the Tapes must have felt. This wasn't just about a school. It was about fundamental rights being denied.
It's almost unimaginable, right? Being told your child doesn't belong. But Mary, she was extraordinary.
She was a force to be reckoned with.
She could have accepted this decision, just given in. But she didn't.
Not for a second. Mary refused to let her daughter be treated as anything less than equal.
Instead of backing down, she decided, what was it? Like, I'm taking this to court.
Exactly. It was an incredibly bold move, challenging the entire system that sought to marginalize them.
The Tapes filed what would become a landmark case, Tape v. Hurley. I mean, they were taking on the San Francisco Board of Education head on.
And this wasn't just about Mamie getting into one particular school, was it?
No, this was much bigger.
This case struck at the core of the 14th Amendment, the guarantee of equal protection under the law for all citizens.
Were Chinese Americans entitled to the same rights as everyone else? That was the question, wasn't it?
And their lawsuit, it was a resounding yes. They challenged the entire notion that discrimination was acceptable.
And the court, they agreed.
In a stunning victory.
The California Supreme Court ruled that segregation based solely on ancestry unconstitutional. It should have been a turning point.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But, well, It wasn't that simple.
It rarely is, unfortunately.
Prejudice ran deep. Instead of accepting the court's decision and integrating the schools, what did they do?
The California legislature, they took a different route. They quickly passed a new law.
One specifically designed to circumvent the ruling.
It's infuriating. To establish separate schools for Chinese children? Can you imagine the tape's reaction?
The audacity, like, we'll give you education, but we'll keep you separate.
Exactly. And it's heartbreaking. Mary Tape, she said it best.
I have that article right here, the Daily Alta California. She wrote, "It seems no matter how a Chinese may live and dress, so long as you know they are Chinese, then they are hated as one.
Powerful words.
There is not any right or justice for them," she wrote. The weight of that statement.
You feel it, don't you? The disillusionment, the constant struggle.
They had won in court, but true equality, that felt further away than ever.
Sadly, the tapes had limited options in the face of this new law.
In the end, they did send their children to the segregated Chinese school.
A stark reminder that legal victories, while important, don't always translate to immediate social change.
It's a process, isn't it? And it's often messy, with progress and setbacks along the way.
Exactly. But cases like Tape v. Hurley, they're essential pieces of that process.
They set precedents, right?
Absolutely. They lay the groundwork for future generations to continue the fight. And Tape v. Hurley, even though it's lesser known, it directly influenced later landmark cases.
For example.
Well, Mendez v. Westminster, which challenged the segregation of Mexican-American students, and of course, Brown v. Board of Education, which finally declared school segregation unconstitutional nationwide.
Wow. So this case, this seemingly isolated incident in 1880 San Francisco, it had ripple effects.
Absolutely. The tapes, they were pioneers, whether they realized it or not.
So what happened to them after the case? Did they just kind of disappear from the historical record?
Not at all. They continued to build their lives in San Francisco, showing resilience in the face of adversity.
And thankfully, we have these glimpses into their lives. Newspaper articles, for instance, describe Mary as this incredibly talented woman.
A true Renaissance woman, an artist, a skilled telegrapher.
And I love this detail. One article, it talks about how impressed the reporter was by Mary's, quote, Americanness.
It shows you just how much the tapes challenged prevailing stereotypes. They refused to be defined by the prejudices of their time.
It's pretty amazing, right? They lived their lives, defied expectations, and made their mark.
Exactly. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about those same questions today. Are we really any different? I mean, have we truly moved past judging people based on heritage rather than, character, merit?
It's a tough one, right? Because on the one hand, we've come a long way since Mary Tape's time, but then you look around and it's like some things haven't changed that much.
It's true. The fight for equal opportunity, for truly equitable education, I mean, it's ongoing.
It really is. We still see disparities in school funding, achievement gaps, and don't even get me started on the lack of representation in curriculum and leadership.
It's like these echoes, right, of those past injustices. They ripple through generations.
It's almost like Mary Tape's story. It's not just history. It's a mirror, almost, reflecting back at us. And it makes you wonder, what would she think if she were here today? If she could see how far we've come, but also how far we still have to go.
What would she say to us?
Right, what would she say? Would she be hopeful or would she be, I don't know, disappointed?
I think she would challenge us to do better, to keep pushing for that vision of equality that she fought so hard for.
Absolutely. And that's really what this deep dive is all about, learner. It's not just about uncovering a fascinating story from the past, but about using it to, to understand our present.
To ask ourselves tough questions about our own communities, our own biases, and the systems that continue to perpetuate inequality.
Exactly. Are we, each of us, doing our part to create a world where everyone has a fair shot, where every child, no matter their background, can reach their full potential?
It's a question worth pondering.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Mary Tape's extraordinary life and her fight for justice, we hope you'll keep asking those questions, keep learning, keep exploring, keep diving deep into the stories that illuminate our shared history and, well, our shared humanity. Until next time, learner.